Chapter 1, Prologue. Prologue. Naruto was determined, this time he would bring back Sasuke. As Team Kakashi approached Orochimaru's latest hideout, what they didn't expect was for Sasuke and Orochimaru to be fighting. At first, it might have seemed like they were training, but the nervous look on the Orochimaru's face told otherwise. Sasuke was trying to kill Orochimaru and the snake was fighting for his life. They both seemed to be evenly matched and the battle didn't look like it was going to end. That was until Naruto jumped by Sasuke's side and began fighting with him. The Raven was more than a little surprised to see Naruto, and confused to find the blonde helping him, but considering the situation he didn't have time to argue. The rest of Naruto's team began fighting Orochimaru's henchmen who were appearing by the dozen and joining the fray. Orochimaru was losing, he was no match for Sasuke and Naruto fighting together. So the Sannin decided if he was going down, he would take one of them with him. As Naruto came closer trying to hit Orochimaru with his Rasengan, the Sannin quickly pulled out his sword. Sasuke realized if Naruto killed Orochimaru, the blonde would be killed too. As Naruto hit the snake with his Rasengan, Sasuke shoved Naruto out of the way, taking the blonde's place. Orochimaru died, but not before plunging his chakra-infused sword into the Raven. It was that day Sasuke died in Naruto's arms. Chapter 2. Sasuke looked around. Everything seemed to be bathed in a bright white light. Soon his eyes got used to the unnatural brightness and he began making out moving figures. The Raven walked forward, hoping things would become clearer. They did, and soon he could see he was in a long room. It was decorated extravagantly, almost everything colored the purest white. He moved up the room, and at the top was a large desk with an aged man sitting there quietly. Sasuke made his way to the person, hoping he would get some kind of explanation. His eyes shifted to the left slightly and, as he got closer, he noticed a young man stood by the side of the desk. He had large white wings spread out behind him. Am I dead? The Raven asked stupidly. The old man looked up from his desk, almost like he had only noticed Sasuke's presence. He smiled at the Raven. Ah, Sasuke Uchiha, I presume. The man spoke slowly and clearly. Sasuke was surprised the man knew his name. It was then he noticed the man had wings too. They were white, similar to the ones the young man had standing beside his desk. Except the elders appeared to be bigger. The Raven eyed the white wings skeptically, wondering if they were somehow attached to his back. Where am I? Sasuke asked. The man picked up some papers and began shuffling them. Once he was finished, he placed them back where they were. The whole action seemed pointless to Sasuke, like the man was just trying to annoy him more by stalling with the answer, but, trying to be as polite as possible, Sasuke said nothing. You are in the Court of Angels. The man replied simply. Sasuke simply gaped. Court, of what? That would explain the wings then, he thought. The Raven remembered his fight with Orochimaru. I am dead then, he mumbled. So, you're all angels here then? He asked. The man answered with a nod of his head. Then what am I doing here? The young man beside the desk stared at the Raven with an annoyed look, but said nothing. You are to be a guardian. The elder said. Sasuke didn't reply to this. I thought I would end up somewhere a little hotter, you know? Fiery flames of hell type hot. The man smiled and picked up a large envelope. He pulled several pages from the envelope and scanned them quickly. I know you made several mistakes in your life, however Sasuke broke the man's speech with a loud snort. I think several would be an understatement, he said. The man stood next to the desk stepped forward, wings outstretched. How dare you speak with such disrespect and arrogance, he hissed. Sasuke ignored him. He knew right from the start he wasn't going to like this person. You should apologize immediately. The man continued. You have no right to. Rowan. The loud voice echoed throughout the hall. The young man, who Sasuke now knew was called Rowan, stepped backwards, muttering apologies. This is Rowan. He is a guardian, the same as you will be. A guardian's job is to watch over the one they are assigned to. Right, he said. Rowan seemed infuriated again. How dare you speak to Lord Sama like that? The old man placed his arm in front of Rowan and motioned backwards. The brown-haired man moved back again. Just speak with some respect, he hissed to Sasuke, before falling silent again. I'm sorry, Lord Sama? He added the name, wondering if he had been correct this time. Rowan didn't say anything, so Sasuke presumed he was correct. The man nodded. Now, you will be assigned to someone you need to watch over. We believe, because of your death, this person may be a risk. You need to watch them day and night. Sasuke nodded. No one in the real world will be able to see you, or hear you, Lord continued. That means you will, in no way, be able to contact anyone. Some humans may be sensitive to your presence, and may feel something, but they won't see you. Sasuke nodded again, letting Lord know he understood everything. The only thing important to you should be the one who you are assigned to. If you find that their life is in danger, truly in danger, then this is where this comes in. Lord pulled a small box from his robes and placed it on the desk. He pushed it forward for Sasuke to take. The raven opened the box and found a necklace. Hung on a delicate silver chain was what looked like a teardrop. Sasuke picked it up and touched it gently. To the raven's surprise, it was solid. This is something all guardians have. Contained in that small glass case is a single unicorn teardrop. It is probably the most important thing I can give you, and it is a last resort to save the one you must protect. He gave Sasuke another moment to stare at the small necklace. Put it on. Sasuke complied, and quickly put the necklace around his neck. If you believe your charge is really going to die, simply let the teardrop fall to the floor. It is most delicate, and once broken will give you a limited time to save your charge. You will become visible, and able to touch anything you desire. Once it has been broken, it cannot be used again. Lord cleared his throat and picked up another sheet of paper. The person you will protect will be Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. He pushed forward a picture of the familiar blonde. Sasuke didn't even need to look at the photograph to know who Lord meant. Sasuke simply stood there with his eyes wide. Ah, you know this boy? Lord asked. Sasuke nodded. I knew him well. He was my best friend. Well, I don't suppose I deserve to call him that anymore after what I did to him, but... Sasuke trailed off, feeling he had said too much. Wait, Sasuke said, remembering something Lord had said earlier. Because of my death Naruto is at risk? Sasuke asked. Lord looked at Sasuke thoughtfully. Yes. That is why you have been assigned to watch Naruto Uzumaki. Rowan will take you down to the real world, and tell you how to get back. Sasuke jumped and looked down. Was this heaven then? Were they in the sky? The raven groaned. This was all too much to take in at once. He stared at Rowan. Perhaps this was some kind of a joke? Suddenly his body felt heavier and the raven fell backwards. He hit the hard floor with a thump. Sasuke looked behind him. It had felt like someone had pulled him over from behind. What he didn't expect was to see a large pair of wings protruding from his own shoulder blades. Rowan smirked down at Sasuke, who was currently trying to stand up again. Finally the flustered raven managed to get to his feet. Rowan was still smirking, obviously enjoying the fact Sasuke was struggling with his new development. Sasuke desperately tried to unfold one of his painfully bent wings, only to nearly fall backwards again. At this, Rowan simply smiled wider. Sasuke shot a glare in his direction. Oh yeah? Well, these things are bloody heave. Sasuke. The raven's head whipped round to meet an angry lord. The man's usual gentle expression was gone, replaced by one of anger. Please refrain from using such profanities in the court of angels. Remember your place, Sasuke. Sasuke stared at the floor. I'm sorry, Lord Sama, he said quietly. The man relaxed. Just make sure it doesn't happen again, he said shortly. Sasuke nodded, but was still confused. He could tell, by the way Rowan treated him with such respect, that this lord guy was probably important. Perhaps a leader of some kind. Sasuke glanced around the white room. Or a god? The man looked up. Rowan, he said quietly. Yes, Lord Sama? He asked. Take Sasuke down now, also tell him how to get back. He should be able to find his charge by himself. Rowan bowed slightly and motioned for Sasuke to follow him. The raven took one last disbelieving glance at the blinding white room, before following Rowan. Chapter 3. Rowan landed gracefully on the ground and waited for Sasuke expectantly, thinking the raven would land in a heap. To his displeasure, Sasuke dropped next to him and landed perfectly like he had done this before. I think I'm getting the hang of it now. Sasuke practically snarled, faking a smile. Rowan couldn't even fake a smile, he simply gave the raven a grimace. That's good, he said through gritted teeth. Sasuke didn't really want to speak to Rowan any more than he really had to, but there was something he wanted to ask. What did Lord mean when he told me to remember my place? He asked. Rowan glared. That's Lord Sama to you. He corrected. Sasuke sighed. That's what I mean. Who is he exactly? Sasuke asked. Rowan decided to answer that question. He most important in the Court of Angels. The most wise, and the most powerful. Lord Sama decides everything and how he wants us guardians to act. Sasuke nodded slowly. So? Basically he's a sort of god then? Rowan rolled his eyes. Such a human way of looking at things, he said with a snort. But yes, you could call him that. He finished with a sigh. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. So what? I bet you were human once, right? Sasuke asked. The already chilly atmosphere between them dropped a few more degrees. I suggest you shut your mouth before I shut it for you, Uchiha. Rowan's white wings spread out behind him, making him seem rather intimidating. Just find your charge and watch him, Uchiha. Just so you know, it's been 3 weeks since you died, he hissed, before taking off into the night. Sasuke sighed and watched as Rowan disappeared. He made a mental note never to mention Rowan's human life, he seemed to be very touchy about it. Scratch that, he made a note never to talk to that stuck-up bastard again. Sasuke began trying to find Naruto. He decided to check the blonde's flat first as it would be the most likely place Naruto would be. Sasuke took off again, hoping that he could get there faster by flight. On his way to Naruto's flat he noticed a flicker of yellow on the ground. Sasuke landed, wondering if it could be Naruto. It turned out he had got lucky and found the blonde. Naruto wasn't alone, he was with Kiba. It seemed that neither of them could stand properly, each of them grabbing the other and stumbling down the street. Kiba tripped over, pulling Naruto with him. They both roared with laughter. I think we might be a bit little drunk. Kiba slurred. Naruto grabbed Kiba's shirt and pulled himself to his feet and threw his friend a silly grin. They finally managed to stumble into the flat, Kiba collapsing on the sofa. Sasuke watched Naruto joke around with his friend. Didn't he miss me, at all? Sasuke asked. He got no reply from the laughing blonde. Sasuke felt rage overflow him. He left Naruto and Kiba alone, getting away from them both. Sasuke found he had flown to his own training ground. He landed gracefully on one of the posts. He almost smiled when he remembered it was the same one Naruto had been tied to. All this time Naruto had been out with his friends having a good time. Sasuke knew he shouldn't expect the blonde to welcome him with open arms after betraying the village like he did, but he didn't think Naruto would be so carefree after his death. Sasuke sighed. It was more than that. It was like he didn't care at all. Sasuke felt angry with himself for getting so upset over this. His sadness was quickly replaced with rage. His white wing snapped out behind him. Fucking Dobi. I hate you. He snarled. Remembering that he was supposed to stay with Naruto at all times, he begrudgingly made his way back. The Raven stood outside the door wondering how he was going to get in. Last time, he managed to slip inside the flat with Naruto and Kiba. Perhaps, in his drunken state, Naruto forgot to lock the door? Sasuke gripped the door handle and found it was locked. Sasuke sighed. How the hell am I supposed to watch Naruto if I can't get in his house? He asked angrily, hitting the door angrily. To Sasuke's surprise, his hand simply went straight through the wood. Hoping this new development wouldn't wear off too quickly, Sasuke jumped through the door. Naruto still had the same stupid smile on his face. This time, he was poking Kiba, who had obviously fallen asleep on the sofa, with what looked like an old chopstick. Kiba! He whined. The dog lover grumbled and rolled off the sofa. He hit the floor with a thud. Naruto laughed. You wake now? He asked, in the same sing-song voice. Hey, Naru, I'm gonna crash at your place, he mumbled, already half asleep. The blonde laughed again. Fine, but don't whine at me when you wake up with a bad back. Kiba was far too drunk to even care where he was sleeping. Loud snores came from Kiba, indicating the dog lover was asleep. Naruto stumbled into the kitchen, still giggling to himself. The blonde was looking in all of his cupboards, looking for more alcohol. Yes. The blonde gave a little dance of victory when he found what he was looking for, only to fall to the floor. Naruto didn't even bother getting up off the floor, he just unscrewed the bottle and drank as much as he could in one gulp. The blonde coughed as the strong liquid burned his throat. Naruto sat up, leaning against the cupboard. Sasuke simply glared. The Raven didn't care he had to stay with Naruto anymore. He stormed out, deciding to leave the blonde alone. Well, I don't care about you either, Naruto. He snarled. If Sasuke had stayed a moment longer, he would have seen Naruto burst into tears, mumbling the raven's name. 725 Chapter 4. Sasuke was in a furious rage. He prepared to take off into the sky, hellbent on getting Lord to change his mind. The raven didn't care what happened when he refused to watch the blonde. He didn't want to be around Naruto, learning just how little everyone cared about his death. Rowan appeared next to him. "What's the problem now?" he drawled. Sasuke shot the other guardian a glare. "Guardians watch more than one person, right?" Sasuke asked. Rowan sighed and gave the impression that Sasuke's question was a completely stupid one. "This has nothing to do with your job. Lord Sama will inform you of things as you need them," Rowan said. "Well, tell Lord Sama that I refuse to be anywhere near the stupid Dobi." Even Rowan was confused by Sasuke's reaction. He doesn't even care. "Not one bit that I've died. I hate him. I got Naruto all wrong. Obviously he wasn't worth dying for." Rowan looked like he wanted to murder Sasuke. "You didn't deserve to know Naruto," he snarled. Sasuke wondered what Rowan meant by that, but before he could ask, the other angel had spread his wings, ready to leave. "I suggest you get back to your charge, Uchiha." He threw the raven a disgusted. "Then again, I knew it was only a matter of time before you directly disobeyed Lord Sama's orders." Sasuke wasn't given time to argue as the other flew into the night. Sasuke gave an indignant huff. "Fine, I will go back to the Dobi," he grumbled. He concentrated, trying to remember how he passed through the door before. He pressed his hand against the window and like last time, his hand passed through. He saw Naruto on the bed, facing away from the raven. He climbed inside the room. Sasuke looked down over the blonde. "Because unlike you, Naruto, I considered you a friend," he said angrily, even though Sasuke knew he was only here because he didn't want to deal with Rowan's complaining. Sasuke. The raven jumped. Naruto could see him? The blonde curled up into a ball. The raven frowned. Was Naruto shaking? Sasuke groaned. Perhaps Naruto had made himself really ill with all the alcohol he had been drinking. Sasuke began to panic. What if Naruto had given himself alcohol poisoning or something? He had no way to get help when no one could see or hear him. He walked around the bed so he could see the blonde's face. He gasped when he saw that Naruto was crying. "Sasuke." The blonde mumbled again, burying his face in a pillow and crying louder. Sasuke watched Naruto with wide eyes. Naruto pulled his face from the pillow, tears falling silently. The blonde slipped his hand under the pillow and pulled out a piece of paper. Sasuke moved forward and saw that it was a photograph. Naruto wiped his eyes and stared at the picture wistfully. "I miss you so much, Sasuke," he mumbled. Sasuke stared at the photo. It was a picture of himself. He looked like he had fallen asleep outside on the grass. He didn't remember giving Naruto permission to take that photo. Then again, if the blonde had asked, he would have refused anyway. The raven sighed. He remembered that day. It was long before he left for Orochimaru. He and the blonde had been training together, and after a spectacular win from Naruto, exhausted afterwards, Sasuke had just pulled his shirt off and collapsed under a tree. The next thing he had remembered was waking up in his own house. Naruto had obviously carried him home. Sasuke smiled. Naruto had never let him live that day down. It was one of the occasions that Naruto had beaten Sasuke, and the blonde had bragged about it as often as possible. Sasuke shook his head. Dwelling on old memories was not what he was supposed to be doing. He watched the blonde wipe his eyes again and pushed the photo back under the pillow. The raven wondered where Naruto was going now. Naruto had gone outside, leaving Kiba alone in the flat. The blonde didn't seem to be at all drunk anymore. He was walking perfectly fine, unlike before when he could barely stand. Perhaps it had something to do with Kyuubi's healing powers? The raven wondered. Sasuke followed, flying near the blonde. Sasuke found he no longer had the speed he used to as a ninja. He couldn't use chakra either. Naruto could move at a fast speed, and Sasuke needed to fly to keep up. Sasuke was thankful when Naruto finally slowed down. Using his wings proved very annoying to Sasuke. They kept aching when he flew for too long, perhaps because it was his first time using them, Sasuke thought. Sasuke had no clue where Naruto would be going at this time of night. His question was answered when he looked around. "Dobi? Why you here?" he asked. As expected, he got no answer. Soon the blonde stopped walking and dropped down to his knees gently. "A graveyard, Naruto?" He wondered aloud. Naruto placed his hand on the stone in front of him. I'm back again, Sasuke, he said softly. Sasuke stood behind the blonde and looked at the gravestone. Uchiha Sasuke was written on it. Died protecting a comrade, he will be missed by many. Sasuke frowned. Naruto was hardly his comrade at the time. I know I keep saying this, but I really wish I'd died instead, Naruto said quietly. What? This surprised Sasuke. Everyone's right. I'm living a life built on your corpse. I shouldn't have got in the way, Naruto sighed. Sasuke looked at the blonde with despair. What had people been saying to him? Naruto down. Sakura finally managed to persuade me to go out tonight. I think she's trying to cheer me up, but no matter how much I drank, I couldn't help thinking about you, Sasuke, he mumbled. Everyone doesn't hate you anymore. After they found out what you did for me, I think even Neji misses you. Well, okay, perhaps not Neji, Naruto smiled, but it was obviously forced and faded quickly. I don't think I can be Hokage anymore, he continued. Naruto began running his finger over the headstone, tracing Sasuke's name. The village hates me. Even more than they did, he said sadly. Naruto clenched his fists. Why would you do that, Sasuke? Why sacrifice yourself? For me? Naruto's questions went unanswered. Sasuke tried to touch the blonde, despite the fact he had already been told he wouldn't be able to touch humans. His hand slipped though Naruto. Sasuke sighed. He wished he were alive so he could comfort Naruto. His hand lingered over his necklace, but then he pulled away. It was something he could use only once, when Naruto's life was in danger. Lord had made it clear that it was very important. Using it now, as much as Sasuke wanted to hold the blonde, would be a waste. The raven settled for just watching Naruto, who was trying not to cry. I hope you can hear me, Sasuke. I want you to know that I'm sorry, Naruto whispered. Then again, if you could, I'm sure you'd think I was being stupid, crying like this. Naruto stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving the stone. It's not stupid, I miss you too, Naruto. His answer went unheard. I'll come again tomorrow night. Goodbye, Sasuke. Chapter 5. Sasuke had watched Naruto walk all the way back to his flat. Kiba was still fast asleep on the floor, snoring loudly. He watched as Naruto dragged Kiba back onto the sofa and then threw a blanket over his sleeping friend before going to bed himself. The raven couldn't help but watch Naruto as he slept. He was glad he was given the chance to come back now. There were a few things he really wanted to know. Why did Naruto come to the grave at night, and not during the day? And what was with him not being able to be the Hokage? It was his dream. And the village hating him more than before? Sasuke sighed and closed his eyes. He was starting to feel very guilty about all the things he said about Naruto. The blonde certainly did care he was gone. Sasuke stared at Naruto's sleeping form. In fact, he had never known that Naruto had considered him so important. Sasuke laid beside Naruto on the bed despite the fact the blonde wouldn't know he was there. To Sasuke's surprise, he found that he couldn't sleep. He didn't need to either. When he thought about it, the raven noticed he didn't really need anything else he normally would. Food, drink, things he would have wanted by now, seemed like nothing. Sasuke wondered if he could pick things up. He could stay on the bed without going through it, so perhaps he could move something in an attempt to let Naruto know he was there? Sasuke decided he would try that in the morning when Naruto woke up. The raven waited and waited, but Naruto seemed to sleep for ages. Much to his delight, Sasuke found he could move things. He pulled the covers away from Naruto and threw them on the floor, hoping it would wake the blonde. Naruto simply let out a disappointed whine, felt around obviously trying to find the blankets, then gave up and fell into a deep sleep again. It was then Sasuke began staring at Naruto. The blonde slept only in his boxers, and Sasuke could see that something was clearly wrong with Naruto. He looked like he hadn't eaten for weeks. The blonde was sleeping on his side, and Sasuke could clearly see Naruto's ribs. He just looked so frail, like the smallest touch could break him. It was then Naruto rolled over and Sasuke noticed something even worse. There were large bruises all over Naruto's chest. On closer inspection, Sasuke noticed some cuts too. Panic welled up inside the raven. What the hell was going on? When he had been with Orochimaru, he had researched all about the Kyuubi. His excuse to the snake was that if he came across Naruto again, he would find it easier to kill the blonde if he knew everything about the demon sealed inside him. The truth was, that Sasuke was simply curious. He had found many interesting things, like how the Kyuubi would heal its container. Sasuke had seen it before on missions. Naruto would always recover at an alarming rate, and when he was seen the next day, the blonde was always perfectly fine. Sasuke had a particularly nasty bruise. If the Kyuubi was healing him, he shuddered to think what it was like when it was first made. Rage surged throughout Sasuke. Naruto couldn't have done this himself. Someone was hurting him. Sasuke decided to make sure he found out who it was. While the Raven was thinking about how he could get revenge for Naruto, the blonde had woken up. Sasuke watched as he trudged to the bathroom. It looked like someone had sucked the life out of him, and judging by Naruto's appearance, Sasuke didn't think he was too far from the truth. The Raven decided that guardians didn't need to watch their charges all the time, and let the blonde have a little privacy. Sasuke decided to wait downstairs with Kiba, who was still asleep and snoring loudly. The Raven noticed a glass of water on the table. Smirking, he picked it up and poured it over Kiba. The dog lover woke up with a start. Huh? Wah? He gripped his hair and flopped back down groaning. Ugh, my head. Kiba dragged himself into the kitchen, looking for some painkillers, all the while mumbling. Sasuke caught the words alcohol and never again. Sasuke heard a knock at the door. Hey, Naruto. The blonde came bounding down the stairs with a newfound energy, a large smile plastered on his face. Sasuke's jaw dropped. His attitude had completely changed. Yeah? Kiba waved his arm in the direction of the front door and covered his ears. Not so loud. He grumbled. Naruto went to answer the door. Sasuke followed, wondering who it would be. Naruto opened the door. Hello Sakura-chan, he said brightly. Sakura smiled back. You and Kiba managed to get home all right then? She asked. Naruto nodded. Naruto didn't really want to mention the fact that he can only get drunk for a little while because Kyuubi heals him. I'm not a lightweight like Kiba, so I had to drag him here. Kiba appeared next to Naruto staring pleadingly at Sakura. You came to heal me, right? He asked. Sasuke shook her head. I came to see Naruto. It's your own fault for drinking so much. Kiba covered his ears again. All right, just don't shout. Ugh, I think I'm going to be sick. Kiba darted off. Naruto laughed as his friend ran up the stairs trying to find the bathroom. When Kiba had gone, Sakura's expression became more serious. Naruto, you look really pale. Have you stopped eating again? She asked in an urgent tone. Naruto shook his head. Of course not. He assured her. Sasuke watched as Naruto convinced Sakura everything was fine. Finally, she gave in. Oh, for crying out loud, Sasuke hissed. Can't you tell he's not all right? You want to go out for some ramen? Sakura asked. It was only Sasuke who caught the fleeting look of horror pass across the blonde's face. A date? Naruto asked, his voice filled with fake hope. Sakura laughed. I don't think Lee would be too impressed, she said. Not a date, but I'll pay for as much as you want. Usually this would get Naruto jumping for joy. I'm not sure, I don't want to leave Kiba here, not while he's sick. Kiba will be fine, I want to talk to you alone. Naruto was genuinely interested now. He shouted to Kiba. Hey, I'm going out for ramen, I'll see you later. Don't talk to me about food. Came the reply. Naruto had finished his first bowl and kept making excuses as to why he didn't want any more. The blonde then asked what she wanted to talk to him about. It's about Sasuke. Naruto's fake smile slipped a bit. What about him? He asked quietly. Sasuke moved closer so he could hear everything. You never seem to want to talk about it, she said. There's nothing to talk about, he snapped back. That's just it, Naruto. There is. Don't think I haven't noticed. Since Sasuke, she sighed sadly, it was hard for her, too. Since he died you haven't been the same. You don't eat properly, and you keep avoiding everyone unless we practically force you to be with us. And, I keep seeing cuts and bruises on you. She finished. I know you miss him, Naruto, I do too. Naruto refused to look at her. Sasuke felt a wave of relief flow through him. At least someone was helping the blonde. At least someone noticed. Please tell me what's going on. She asked. I can help. Sakura-chan, don't be ridiculous. The fake grin was in place again. Sure, I miss Sasuke, but I am eating. He pointed to the bowl he had just finished. Yes, But when was the last time you had something before that? She asked. Naruto knew she could tell. I'm eating fine, he assured her. Look, I'll even have another bowl if it makes you happy, he said. Or 3. He added with a smile. Sakura seemed convinced by this. And, the bruises? She asked. When Naruto had finished ordering his ramen, he answered. You know what a klutz I can be, Sakura-chan. Sakura seemed to think this explained everything. Yeah, okay. Just, if there ever is anything wrong, I'm always here for you, Naruto, she said. Naruto nodded. Sasuke felt like punching something. How could she fall for that? He walked over to Sakura. There is something wrong with Naruto. Someone is hurting him, he yelled at her. She didn't even move. Damn it. Naruto practically shoved the food down his throat and left Sakura. Sasuke flew above Naruto and he didn't miss all the horrible looks he was getting as he walked down the street. The Raven was puzzled. What was their problem? Then he remembered what Naruto had said about them hating him even more. A stone sailed through the air and narrowly missed Naruto. It was closely followed by a kunai. The blonde darted away, but 2 angry people followed him. As Naruto turned the corner in a deserted street, he was tackled to the ground. I got your. Naruto tried to wriggle away, and in return he got a punch in the stomach. Sasuke knew how frail Naruto was at the moment. The blonde let out a small whimper and his struggles became weaker and weaker. Why did you do it, monster? One of them asked angrily, holding a large knife. Do what? You killed the Uchiha. Don't even deny it, you filthy demon. Naruto didn't even try and fight them off. What the hell are you doing, Naruto? Sasuke yelled. The Raven knew how powerful Naruto was, and couldn't understand why he wouldn't fight back. I didn't mean to. He told them. He just jumped in the way. For this, Naruto was hit again. Sasuke tried to grab the men, but his hands simply glided straight through them. I should kill you. One less piece of trash in this world. The man came forward with the knife. Scared, Naruto kicked him off and forced himself to his feet. The blonde quickly, much to Sasuke's displeasure, apologized to the person for the kick and ran off before he could be attacked again. Naruto was considerably slower with his new injuries, but eventually made it home. Kiba was nowhere to be found when he got back, and Naruto was glad of this. The blonde pulled his clothes off and slipped into bed, his new bruises clear for Sasuke to see. Another quick longing glance at the picture of Sasuke he had, Naruto fell asleep clutching his stomach, willing the pain away. The Raven watched with murderous eyes. He needed to help Naruto. Somehow, he just had to. Chapter 6. Sasuke watched with disbelief as Naruto climbed out of bed and began getting dressed. It was now night. The Raven knew where Naruto was going, his grave. Sasuke noticed that the older bruises had gone, and the new ones were fading. Kyuubi was obviously healing them. Naruto made his way silently to Sasuke's grave. The Raven followed. Sasuke. Naruto began talking quietly. He seemed to be doing exactly what he was doing before, apologizing for what sounded like everything. Please stop, Dobi. I don't blame you for anything, it wasn't your fault. I do have my own free will, you know, Sasuke said sadly, knowing he wouldn't be heard. And then I got away. I suppose it was my fault. Perhaps I should have let them kill me, Naruto murmured. Much to Sasuke's relief, Naruto added something else to the end of that sentence. Then again, you would have died for nothing. I mean, you obviously wanted me to live, otherwise you wouldn't have. Naruto stopped talking, trying not to cry again. Naruto sighed and simply sat in silence, staring at the stone in front of him. Sasuke moved in front of Naruto and tried to pick up a stone. Perhaps if he dangled it in Naruto's face, the blonde would know he was there? Sasuke's hand slipped straight through the stone. What? I could pick things up before. He thought, confused. He called Rowan. The brown-haired angel appeared next to him. I didn't think you would come, Sasuke said. Rowan sighed. I don't have much of a choice in the matter, Uchiha. Don't think for a minute that I actually want to. He assured Sasuke. Well, I don't want you here either, I just wanted to know something. Sasuke growled. He calmed himself down, knowing Rowan would be reluctant to give him an answer if he was rude. I was just wondering, why can't I touch anything anymore? Rowan didn't understand what Sasuke meant, so the Raven elaborated. Before, I picked up a glass of water. Now, I can't pick up that rock. Why? He asked. Rowan rolled his eyes. Let me guess, you were trying to get the human to acknowledge your presence by picking up that rock? He asked in a bored tone. Sasuke looked away. Was it really that predictable he would try that? You can't do anything when you have the intention to reveal yourself. It's just a way Lord Sama has of making sure our existence is not exposed. Showing ourselves to humans is only what should be done in an attempt to keep them from harm, not whatever you are trying to do. To keep that to a minimum, we can only make contact once, with the help of the unicorn teardrop. Rowan pointed to the necklace Sasuke was wearing. I believe now you realize how important that is. You will only ever get one's chance. Sasuke nodded to show he understood. Then what exactly is the point? I have to watch him go through all this, knowing there's no way I can help him. It's torture. He turned to Naruto, who had tears flowing down his face again. Isn't there any way? No, Rowan said shortly. I'm leaving now. Unlike you, my time is valued. In future, keep your stupid questions to yourself. With a flap of wings, Rowan was gone. Sasuke glared at the spot the other guardian had currently been standing in. What was that guy's problem? He thought angrily. He turned around to find Naruto gone. Oh, great. Just what I need. He groaned, taking off into the sky, trying to find the blonde. It didn't take Sasuke long to find Naruto, the blonde was simply on his way home. Like before, Sasuke watched Naruto sleep, every second wishing he could in some way comfort the blonde. Sasuke went downstairs. He had, last night, been given another glimpse of how much Naruto had been eating recently. That last thing the blonde had eaten was that ramen Sakura had practically forced down his throat. He opened the cupboard and wondered what was there for Naruto to have for breakfast. The entire cupboard was filled with instant ramen. Sasuke groaned, how predictable. Knowing there wouldn't be much else, Sasuke decided he would make this for Naruto. Suddenly, his ability to touch things faded. Sasuke looked upwards angrily. This isn't an attempt to show him I'm here. He snarled. It's an attempt to make breakfast, if that's possibly okay with you? He snarled. The Raven had no idea if Lord or Rowan would hear him. It was obvious that Rowan couldn't, he would be down in seconds, nagging about how dare he disrespect Lord Sama. Sasuke groaned. He could practically hear him whining now. Whoever had heard him, it seemed to have done the trick as Sasuke resumed making the food for the blonde. Minutes later, the Raven carried the steaming food up to Naruto. He placed the cup on the table beside the bed. The blonde woke up quickly, the smell dragging him awake. He spotted the cup and sighed, a small smile on his face. Sakura, you worry too much, he mumbled, rolling over. Sasuke felt a small twinge of jealousy that Naruto would instantly think of her. Then again, his inner voice, which reminded him too much like Rowan, told him that did Naruto really expect his dead best friend to have possibly made him breakfast? Sasuke shook his head slightly, trying to clear his thoughts. Come on, Dobi. Eat it. Naruto didn't move. Sasuke sighed. Don't carry on like this, just eat it, please, Sasuke begged. Naruto didn't hear a think, but minutes later, rolled back over and picked up the cup. Sasuke let out a sigh of relief when Naruto began eating. Thank God, Sasuke murmured. He happily watched as Naruto finished eating and walked into the bathroom. Sasuke sat on the bed waiting for Naruto to finish in the shower. The blonde came out, minutes later, wearing nothing but a towel that was tied around Naruto's waist so loosely it was threatening to slip down at any moment. Sasuke's jaw dropped. He could stop himself from staring as water droplets dripped from Naruto's hair down his chest, lower, then lower. Sasuke snapped his head up, angry with himself for staring. And why the hell was he blushing? Sasuke left the room so the blonde could get changed. He waited downstairs, trying to calm himself down. By the time Naruto came downstairs fully dressed, Sasuke had decided to push any thoughts he had had that moment out of his mind, never to dwell on them again. He decided to make a point that he would leave the room as soon as Naruto woke up, to avoid another incident like before. Sasuke didn't know why he would suddenly find himself staring at his half-naked teammate, but he was going to make sure it didn't happen again. Naruto began picking up empty drink bottles and throwing them away. He still hadn't tidied up since he had been drinking with Kiba, and the place was beginning to look a mess. Everything looked much cleaner when the bottles were out of the way. Naruto sat down on the sofa and looked around. He was trying to find something else to do. When he wasn't busy, his thoughts constantly dwelled on Sasuke. Naruto gave in and went upstairs. He took another look at the picture of Sasuke, his blue eyes filled with longing. The Raven wondered if he should hide the picture. Perhaps it would help Naruto forget about him, and move on with his life. Then again, it could upset the blonde, and that is exactly what Sasuke didn't want to do right now. Naruto. The blonde jumped and quickly stuffed the picture back under his pillow. I knocked on the door, but you didn't answer and it was open. I'll come back later? It was Sakura. Naruto quickly jumped off the bed, hoping that she hadn't seen the photograph. Sasuke caught Sakura staring at the empty ramen cup sitting on Naruto's bedside table. He hoped she wouldn't mention it, because as far as Naruto knew, she had been the one to leave it there. Much to Sasuke's relief, she didn't say anything about it. And no, it's fine. What was it you wanted? Naruto asked. I just wanted to let you know that Gaara's in town today. He had to speak with the Hokage about something, but I think he wants to talk to you too, she said. Naruto's fake grin was in place immediately. Sure, I'll get my coat. Sasuke wasn't too pleased about having to be around Gaara all day. He had never liked him, and had always, even though he didn't want to admit it, always been jealous of the closeness between Naruto and the redhead. When it was getting late, Naruto decided he should leave. Naruto, if you ever need anything, I'm always here for you, Gaara said quietly. Naruto smiled. That was probably the kindest thing Gaara had ever managed to say. Thanks, Naruto replied. Naruto left Gaara and was on his way home. Sasuke followed, glad he was finally away from the redhead. Sasuke didn't even bother hiding the fact that he was jealous. He knew he would do anything to take Gaara's place and be around to comfort Naruto. It wasn't going to happen though, Sasuke reminded himself quickly. Flying overhead, Sasuke noticed that Naruto was being followed. With no way to warn Naruto, he decided to keep an eye out. Unfortunately, it looked like Naruto wasn't going straight home. He was taking the same route he did every night to Sasuke's grave. Dobi, just leave it, you were here last night, Sasuke hissed, his eyes scanning round trying to find the people who were following Naruto. He was glad to find that they had gone, perhaps Sasuke was just being paranoid. On his way back, Sasuke found that he wasn't just being paranoid and there was someone following the blonde. Finally he spotted one of their faces and became more worried than he already was. It was the same guys from before and that meant they obviously were trying to hurt Naruto. The blonde walked down an alley and Sasuke could tell they were going to attack then. He wished that Naruto would just hurry up and get home where he would be safer. Suddenly Naruto was tackled from behind. Naruto scrambled out from underneath his captor, only to be stopped by the other man. He had fallen right into their trap. Naruto was shoved to the floor again. Grab his wrists and keep him down, one of them said. Naruto's wrists were pinned above his head. No matter how much he squirmed, he couldn't break free. The other straddled the blonde's hip, effectively cutting off all means of escape for the blonde. He could hardly even move anymore. Why are you doing this? Naruto asked, scared of what they were going to do. The guy above Naruto unzipped the blonde's jacket and slipped his hands under Naruto's black t-shirt. Let me go. Naruto didn't like the feeling of the stranger's hands roaming across his chest. Sasuke was furious. How dare they handle Naruto like that? The hands moved downwards and began unzipping Naruto's orange trousers. Their intentions were clear and Sasuke was beginning to panic just as much as Naruto. No. I don't want this. The blonde protested. The man holding his wrists did so with one hand and used the other to cover Naruto's mouth. Shut up. He snarled. Did you really think you would get away from us after before? He added venomously. Naruto cried out as cold hands slipped into his boxers. Please, don't. Sasuke felt sick. How could they even think about doing this to Naruto? He pulled off the small chain he was wearing around his neck. He knew he only had one chance at this, but Sasuke decided there was no way he could possibly sit back and watch this. Naruto cried out again. The Raven's mind was made up. Chapter 7. Rowan grabbed Sasuke's arm before he could drop the fragile glass. Don't even think about it, he said. Sasuke snatched his hand away. What the hell are you taking about? Sasuke snarled. You should be thanking me, you nearly wasted that, Rowan said angrily, pointing to the small necklace that was still intact, in Sasuke's hand. Wasted? Are you fucking blind, or did you just decide not to see what's going on in front of us? He shouted. Rowan shrugged and for once let Sasuke's outburst slide. Yes, I can see it. But if you decided to use that brain of yours, you would have noticed that they are not necessarily going to kill your charge, are they? Sasuke's jaw dropped. So you expect me to sit here and wait? He asked. For once, Rowan thought Sasuke actually got the point of what he was trying to say. Exactly. You use that when he's going to die. They aren't making any attempt to kill him, so you should save that for a real emergency. Sasuke slammed the chain to the ground. The raven felt faint for a moment. The men looked up, noticing Sasuke. The raven was glad the men could see his wings. He didn't know if he could use chakra and the wings would add to his intimidation factor. It's the Uchiha. He spread them out threateningly. Get off him, now. He thundered. The men jumped away from the blonde. One step forward by Sasuke and the men ran away, obviously unnerved by Sasuke's appearance. The raven zipped Naruto's trousers up and pulled the blonde into his arms. You may think I wasted my chance, but I could never watch as people did that to my best friend. How long am I able to be like this? He asked. I don't know. I just hope you realize what you've wasted, he said. Sasuke cradled Naruto to his chest and took off. Not knowing how long he had liked this, he decided to get Naruto home as quickly as possible. By the time Sasuke had taken Naruto home and placed him gently on the bed, the blonde seemed to have come to his senses. Sasuke. Sasuke wondered how on earth he was going to explain this to the blonde. Naruto gripped onto Sasuke and refused to let go. I'm dreaming again, aren't I? Naruto asked sadly. Sasuke let out a sigh of relief. Naruto had handed him a perfectly reasonable excuse. Go to sleep, Dobi. Naruto pulled the raven on the bed with him, curling up against Sasuke. I just wish that one time when I woke up, you would really be there. Naruto fell asleep quickly, still gripping onto the raven. Suddenly, Naruto's hands fell through Sasuke and landed on the bed with a soft thud. It was obvious that was the time limit. Sasuke waited for Naruto to wake up and find he was gone. The blonde didn't seem surprised that Sasuke wasn't there when he woke up. It was obvious that he had dreams about this a lot. He stared at the spot where his dream Sasuke had been. He rolled over, trying to remind himself that Sasuke wasn't coming back, no matter how much it hurt when he told himself that. He wondered how he got home after those men attacked him. The last thing the blonde remembered was their horrible hands roaming all over him, then, nothing. He thought he must have blacked out of something, but that still wouldn't explain how he got home. Naruto could tell they hadn't got round to doing anything serious to him. The blonde was sure he would remember something like that. Perhaps he just freaked them out by fainting, and they went away? The blonde climbed out of bed and sighed. When it came down to it, he really didn't care much. He went into the bathroom and came out considerably happier. Sasuke was slightly suspicious of this, but decided it couldn't be anything bad if Naruto was feeling better. Sasuke walked downstairs and waited for Naruto to get dressed. He wasn't happy to find a very pissed Rowan waiting for him. Oh, great, now what? Sasuke groaned. Rowan simply folded his arms across his chest and glared. Lord Sama will not be pleased in the slightest by your actions, he hissed. You wasted something irreplaceable that night. Did you truly believe that was the right time to use it? Sasuke sighed. If you mean do I regret my decision, then it's a no. I don't regret saving Naruto last night and I don't think I ever will. Rowan simply smirked. Sasuke felt like punching it off his face. How could someone possibly stay so smug all the time? Sasuke's temper got the better of him. Fuck you. He snarled. There is no way Naruto deserved to go through that. I know Naruto better than you, he was my best friend and I'm Naruto's guardian, so I know that if he had gone through that, well, there's only so much one person can take. Sasuke felt much better after he had yelled at Rowan, but was infuriated again when he saw the same cocky smirk was still on Rowan's face. You may have known Naruto longer, but you are hardly a competent guardian. In fact, I hardly see why you should deserve to be called Naruto's guardian. In the few short times I have seen your charge, I have noticed something important that you have completely overlooked. Sasuke wondered what Rowan meant. The Raven had watched Naruto properly, day and night. There couldn't be something he had missed that Rowan had picked up on. If you mean his dreams about me, I know about them. I watch him during the night too. Rowan's smirk grew. Oh no, it's not that. I just can't believe you never knew your charge was self-harming. Panic flooded Sasuke. Surely he was joking? He had to be. I watch Naruto all the time. You're lying, Sasuke spat. He couldn't believe Rowan would make something like this up just to make it seem like he was incompetent. When you picked Naruto up last night, I spotted the marks on his arms. That means there must be some time in the day you don't watch him, if you really don't know about it. Something clicked, and Sasuke went back upstairs and floated through the locked door, into the bathroom. He was sickened to find that Rowan was right. His eyes narrowed. You disgust me. I can't believe you didn't tell me last night. I could have prevented this. He waved his arm in the direction of the blonde who was holding a small razor over his wrist. Knowing there was nothing he could do, Sasuke simply looked away grimacing, hoping Naruto wouldn't cut himself too deeply. Thankfully, Naruto put the razor away after 2 cuts. Sasuke stared at the scars under the new cuts Naruto had made. He felt disgusted that he hadn't seen those sooner. I never followed Naruto into the bathroom. I thought he at least deserved a little privacy, but once again, I fucked up. The Raven said in a hollow voice. Look, you're not the most observant of all people, but it's an easy thing to miss. That was probably the nicest thing Rowan had said so far. Shut up, Sasuke snapped. He didn't care about the slightly guilty tone in Rowan's voice, all that mattered was that he had missed something this big. Next time I've missed something minor, Sasuke hissed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Please take the time and tell me. Naruto got up and walked straight through them both, completely oblivious of how much his little display had affected Sasuke, who was feeling the strong crush of failure. How? How could he have missed this? He had spent night after night doing nothing but watch the blonde as he slept, yet he didn't notice the marks that Rowan had picked up in one glance. If you look at the marks, you can see they have faded, which means he hasn't done it in a while, Rowan said. Obviously he is just doing it now to deal with the trauma of what happened last night. Sasuke's head snapped in Rowan's direction. The brown-haired guardian seemed to have used up whatever sympathy he had. Just watch your charge properly in the future. I will inform Lord Sama that you have used your unicorn's teardrop. He was gone before Sasuke could argue with him any further. Sasuke went into Naruto's room where the blonde was almost dressed. His eyes drifted to Naruto's wrists. From now on, he would watch Naruto non-stop. There would be no way something like this would slip by him again. Chapter 8. Since Sasuke had saved Naruto, the blonde had seemed to be getting more and more depressed. When Kiba and Sakura had come to visit the blonde, Naruto hadn't even bothered to answer the door, he had simply stayed completely quiet in his room, giving the impression he wasn't in. He spent hours staring at Sasuke's picture, his eyes clouding over. Even though Naruto thought it was a vivid dream, Sasuke couldn't help but wish the blonde hadn't seen him. It seemed to have made Naruto worse. Then again, he had too. Like he explained to Rowan, there was no way he would sit back and watch while his friend was attacked like he was. There was another loud knock on the door. Sasuke hoped Naruto would answer. The blonde simply sighed and ignored the sound. Naruto? The call came through the letterbox. It was Sakura again. If only Naruto would answer. Sakura was bound to realize he wasn't himself. Surely she, someone who could help Naruto, would notice the scars on Naruto's arms? The blonde didn't move. Eventually Sakura must have given up, because another knock didn't come. Naruto simply crawled back into bed, pulling the photo of Sasuke out again. The Raven wished Naruto had never taken that photo. Every time the blonde looked at it, his eyes filled with pain and something Sasuke couldn't place. Naruto's eyes began welling up again. Just put it away, Dobi. Every time you see it, it makes you cry. Why can't you just forget about me? Move on. As usual, his answer went unheard by the blonde. Naruto pushed the picture back, he didn't want his tears to ruin the photo. With Sasuke's image burned clearly in his mind, Naruto closed his eyes, tears still seeping through. I can't take this anymore, Naruto mumbled in a pained voice. Sasuke certainly didn't like the sound of that. Naruto walked to the bathroom. Sasuke followed him closely. The last time the blonde was in the bathroom, he was cutting himself. It turned out Naruto was just having a shower. Sasuke sighed with relief, though he refused to leave the room. He couldn't afford to leave Naruto alone, considering what happened last time. He averted his eyes when the blonde pulled off his clothes and made sure his gaze didn't slip below Naruto's neck. When Naruto finally came out of the shower and wrapped a towel around his waist, Sasuke was horrified to find that Naruto's gaze rested on the razor blade that was sitting on the sink. Don't, Sasuke hissed. Naruto reached out for the blade and picked it up carefully. Naruto, put it back, Sasuke said, desperation seeping into his voice. Another warning glance at the blade, Naruto placed it back and quickly walked away before he could change his mind. "Thank God," Sasuke whispered. As Sasuke walked into Naruto's room, he was met by Rohan. Sasuke groaned, how many times did he have to see this guy? "Lord Sama would like to speak with you." Sasuke didn't answer. "Immediately." The guardian hissed. Sasuke frowned. "I don't think so. I need to be with Naruto," was his simple answer. Rohan, as usual, was furious. "No one, especially you, has the right to say I don't think so in accordance to an order from Lord Sama." Sasuke shrugged. He wasn't in the mood for Rohan right now, not that he ever was. "Well, tell Lord Sama I need to be with my Naruto." Rohan quirked an eyebrow at this. "Your Naruto?" he asked, smirking. Sasuke realized his mistake. "I meant Naruto. I need to stay with Naruto." Rohan's expression didn't change, and Sasuke was feeling more embarrassed by the second. "Arg, you're confusing me." It wasn't usual for Sasuke to admit he was confused. As insolent as always, Uchiha, Rohan snapped. Any amusement of Sasuke's previous comment had completely dried up. "Do you think Lord Sama would leave a charge unattended? I am to fill in meanwhile, while you go back to the court." Sasuke threw Rohan his angriest glare yet. "Leave Naruto? With you?" he snarled. "You know how to get to Lord Sama. Now go." That was his final word, and Rohan gestured to the window. "Fine, but just tell me when I get back if Naruto touched that razor. Or if anything changes. Or if he looks at my picture again, or..." Sasuke was shoved out the window. He instantly floated through the frame and glass. Before he could hit the ground, his wings unfurled and he took flight quickly. Deciding that going back and having an argument with Rohan would be a waste of time, Sasuke went to meet with Lord. The Raven walked up the white corridor. It was exactly the same as it was the last time he was here, blinding white. He quickly walked up to the desk. "You called?" he asked urgently. He needed to get back to Naruto quickly. "Lord Sama," he added quickly. The man nodded. "Rohan informs me you have already used your unicorn's tear. Is this correct?" Sasuke nodded, not quite knowing what to say. The man nodded once again, writing something in small, almost illegible writing to Sasuke, on a piece of paper. He placed it in a drawer on his desk. "I believe I did not make its importance clear enough? You realize, do you not, that it was once chance, which you now have used up?" "I realize it was important, and Rohan has said it could only be used once. Naruto, my charge, was in danger. Did I do wrong by saving him, Lord Sama?" he asked. The man studied Sasuke for a moment. "Very well." His words seemed very final. He looked down and began writing again. He looked up again, almost surprised Sasuke was still there. Sasuke noticed this. Was that all?" he asked. Judging by the amount of times Rohan went on, he thought Lord would have been more bothered. "And no, I was wondering, why am I still watching Naruto, even though I can't help him at all?" Lord stopped his writing and placed his pen down. He once again looked up at Sasuke. "You are a guardian, and you have been given a charge. Guardians watch their charges until the charges themselves die." Sasuke didn't want to think about his charge dying. If they did die?" he asked. Sasuke's curiosity was getting the better of him. "A new charge will be assigned, or you would become a stand-in, like Rohan." Sasuke didn't reply to this. He kept his cool demeanor, but inside, he was seething. He couldn't even think about watching over someone who was not Naruto. "Stand-in? Depending on the situation, I will decide which you should become. Rohan merely takes over when the charge's true guardian is unavailable, for any circumstance. Like now, for example," he said. Sasuke nodded in understandment. Sasuke decided to leave before he got angrier about having to watch someone new in the future. Then again, he was sure Naruto wouldn't be dying anytime soon, so he had no need to worry about it at the moment. He hurried back, wondering how Naruto would be, left alone with Rohan. Thinking of Rohan, Lord had said guardians could only become a stand-in once their charge has died. Does that mean Rohan once had a charge that died? Sasuke decided to ask him about that when he got back. Rohan always made himself seem so perfect, and that everything the Raven did would be wrong, yet his own charge died? Sasuke smiled. He finally had something he could throw back in Rohan's smarmy, superior smirk, when he decided to bring up yet again fault of the Ravens. When Sasuke got back, He demanded a full report on what happened when he left. Rowan met him with a bored stare. Let's see, he got dressed, then sat on the bed crying over your picture. This didn't surprise Sasuke. Anything else? He asked. Rowan nodded. 4 times he's gone into the bathroom, picked up this razor blade, and then put it back. Sasuke was instantly filled with worry. He didn't hurt himself, did he? He asked quickly. Rowan seemed slightly taken aback by the amount of concern in Sasuke's voice. No, he put it down almost as soon as picking it up each time, he said. Sasuke nodded. He was glad Naruto understood that hurting himself wasn't the answer, and was obviously desperately trying to stop himself. That's good, right? Sasuke added at the strange look on Rowan's face. What? He snapped angrily. He's getting more and more upset, Uchiha. Sasuke watched as the distraught blonde curled up tighter on the bed. I know, but there's nothing I can do about it, is there? Lord Sama already told me that basically I watch until Naruto dies, he said glumly. I'm going now, Rowan announced. Sasuke watched as he disappeared through the wall. Sasuke watched as Naruto slipped off the bed. The blonde pulled a pad and a pen from a drawer, sat back down, and began writing something. Sasuke climbed on the bed and knelt behind Naruto, watching everything he wrote. After the blonde had written the second line, his intentions were clear. Sasuke watched in horror as Naruto carried on writing. Oh, God, no. Chapter 9. Sasuke could hardly move with fear. He couldn't believe this was actually happening. Rowan, he shouted desperately. The other guardian must have noticed the sheer panic in Sasuke's voice, and came immediately. What? Sasuke pointed to the note Naruto had just finished writing. Rowan leaned over and read what Naruto had written. To anyone who cared. I'm writing this to say goodbye. You may think I was fine after Sasuke's death, but that was really far from the truth. Nothing can ever be the same again, not without Sasuke. When he left, the only thing that stopped me from doing this was the hope that we could bring him back. When Sasuke died, a part of me did too. Probably the part of me that could ever be happy again. Without me there is no Kyuubi. I can make the entire village happy while ending my own pain. That's why it's much better this way. Thank you for looking out for me, despite the fact I'm a demon. Naruto. Rowan looked up at Sasuke. He's suicidal, he said simply. Well, have you come here to state the obvious, or help? Sasuke snapped angrily. Rowan shrugged. In what way do you suppose I help? He asked the raven. Naruto folded the note and put it in his pocket. He pulled Sasuke's photo from under his pillow and put that in his pocket too. The blonde climbed off the bed and went into the bathroom. Worried, Sasuke followed. Naruto picked up the razor and put that in his pocket with the letter and photo. Rowan threw Sasuke a nervous glance. I need to tell you this, Sasuke. You need to understand it. Sasuke tore his gaze away from Naruto and looked at Rowan. If Naruto. Sasuke's glare told him he didn't want to hear it. You just have to know, there is nothing you can do to stop him. The raven gaped at Rowan. So we just give up and watch? He said incredulously. Not exactly, there is still one's chance. Sasuke was filled with determination. Whatever it is, I'll do it, he said quickly. Rowan shook his head. Like I said, there's nothing you can do. Your last hope is that he doesn't go through with it. Sasuke was angry with this. That's it? That's all I can do? Sit back and hope Naruto doesn't kill himself? He snapped. The other guardian didn't answer. Is that what got your charge killed, sitting back and hoping? Sasuke snarled venomously. Rowan's attitude changed within seconds. If you know what's best, you will never mention that again, he said in a dangerously low voice. Rowan's wings spread, and he was gone within seconds. Sasuke stared blankly at the space he had been in. Whatever reaction he had expected, that wasn't it. He didn't even get the satisfaction of, for once, showing Rowan that he wasn't perfect. Naruto looked out the window, and found it was getting dark. The blonde seemed satisfied by this, as he zipped up his jacket and walked out of his house. Sasuke flew above him, the whole while filled with a constant longing for some way to stop Naruto. By the time Naruto reached his destination, Sasuke's grave, the raven was feeling sick. He didn't want to believe this was happening. Naruto dropped down and pulled Sasuke's photo out his pocket. He stared at it for a moment, before pulling out the razor blade. Naruto glanced at the picture once more, Then his gaze fell on the razor blade in his hand. "I'll be with you soon, Sasuke." The blonde mumbled. Sasuke couldn't even remember the last time he cried, but now he couldn't stop the tears that were flowing down his face if he wanted to. It was then Rowan appeared by his side. "Come to gloat?" Sasuke snapped. Rowan was surprised to find Sasuke crying. "No, I haven't." Rowan stared at Naruto, who seemed to be thinking about something, the blade poised over his wrist. "He's really going through with it then," Rowan said quietly. Sasuke shook his head, more tears seeping out. "This can't be happening." Rowan stayed quiet. I can't lose him, I love him," Sasuke blurted out. "Technically, you've already lost him. I mean, you're dead, so it's not like you could ever be with him." Rowan obviously didn't know the meaning of tact at that moment. Naruto gripped tighter on the blade, he was obviously planning on getting things over with now. Sasuke looked away and bit his lip, his tears flowing faster than before. He couldn't bear to watch. Sasuke, the Raven, was surprised to find his first name come from Rowan. He looked up. "Here," Rowan said quietly. Sasuke stared at what Rowan was trying to give him. It looked like the necklace he had once used to help Naruto. "Hurry up, you don't have much time." Sasuke had so many questions to ask at that moment, but Rowan was right, time was against him. Sasuke quickly took it and dropped it to the ground. Ignoring the similar dizzy feeling he got last time, Sasuke dived at Naruto and wrenched the razor away from Naruto and pinned him down. "Dobi, what the hell do you think you were doing?" he shouted. Naruto stared at Sasuke's tear-streaked face. "Sasuke," he said softly. Naruto reached out for where Sasuke had thrown the razor. The Raven held Naruto's wrists down with more force. "Don't you dare touch that thing ever again," he hissed. Naruto looked up, admiring Sasuke's large black wings. "I thought angels would have white wings," Naruto mumbled. Sasuke groaned. "Naruto, don't talk about stupid things like that. Just promise me you won't ever hurt yourself again." Naruto smiled up at Sasuke. "This is my hallucination," Naruto said in a teasing voice. "You should have white wings," Sasuke shouted the blonde's name loudly. Naruto just didn't understand how serious the situation was. "This isn't a hallucination, Naruto, just please don't ever try and kill yourself again. It's not what I would have wanted, and certainly not what I gave up my life for." Naruto ignored this. "I just want this to end, Sasuke. These delusions, all the pain, I just want it to stop." Sasuke relaxed his grip on Naruto. "All that will go, just give it time," Sasuke said gently. "Please Naruto. I just need you to promise me you won't try this again. If you ever cared about me, surely you'll do this one last thing?" he begged. "Of course I care," Naruto said quickly. "Then. I promise. I won't try and kill myself again." Sasuke sighed with relief and let Naruto go. Just for good measure, Sasuke picked up the blade and threw it as far as he could. He then felt something touch his wing. It felt strange, no one had ever touched him there before. Naruto ran his fingers over the soft black feathers. Sasuke had a sudden urge to kiss Naruto. He leaned forward, but his time had already ended. Naruto reached out as Sasuke faded from sight, his hand caught nothing but thin air. Naruto sighed and knelt by the grave again and placed his palm over the stone. "I promise," Naruto whispered. Sasuke turned to face Rowan. "Where did you get that? I thought each guardian was only allowed one each, and that's why they're so special?" "That's right. I gave you mine." Sasuke stared at Rowan. "You went on and on how important those things were, yet you gave up yours for a charge that wasn't even your own? That you didn't even have a connection with?" Rowan had a strange look on his face. "You just reminded me of myself." Now Sasuke wanted to know everything. "Why?" he asked. "When I died, my first charge was my boyfriend. Daniel. He reacted just the same as him when I died." He gestured to Naruto. X flashback X. Rowan watched helplessly as his charge walked to the edge of the cliff. "Dan?" He wasn't hurt. "Dan, what the hell are you doing?" Rowan asked shakily. As usual, like the past month he had been watching over Daniel, he got no answer. "I need you so much, Rowan." The brown-haired guardian watched sadly as his boyfriend unclasped his hand and stared at the small object in his palm. "I had no idea you were going to propose to me." Rowan stepped closer to Daniel as his boyfriend placed the ring on his finger. I would have said yes, he mumbled. Rowan forced back tears that welled up in his eyes. One more step, and Daniel was gone. What? Dan. Rowan dived off the cliff after his lover. XN Flashback X. Sasuke gaped as Rowan finished explaining. I didn't even have the chance to save him, he just jumped so quickly. The Raven's respect for Rowan rose considerably, at least he had some kind of excuse for being so cold. He felt slightly guilty for what he said before about Rowan losing his charge. Thank you. Rowan just nodded. You better keep an eye on him, Uchiha, otherwise Lord Sama will be displeased. Rowan pointed to Naruto, who was already walking away from the grave with Sasuke's photo in his hand. Sasuke couldn't help but smile when he turned away from Rowan. He found it amusing the way he snapped straight back to his annoying self, constantly mentioning Lord, and how he mattered most. The Raven followed Naruto home, for once glad he had called Rowan. A thought he had been suppressing for a long time refused to stay back. He turned back to Rowan. He could catch up to Naruto later as his flying would get him there quickly, and Naruto always took the same route home. Sasuke sighed. He hated it when Rowan disappeared all the time, and it always seemed to be when he had something important to say. He quickly caught up with Naruto, who hadn't got far since Sasuke had turned back to talk to Rowan. Sasuke decided he would talk to Rowan tomorrow. After everything he had done to help save Naruto's life, it would be rude to keep on pestering him. Flying just above, Sasuke glanced at Naruto's face. He couldn't believe he hadn't thought of this before. Tomorrow, everything could change. Chapter 10. Sasuke couldn't help but stare at Naruto's sleeping face. He looked so different when he slept. Peaceful. Sasuke remembered what he had said the other night, about loving Naruto. At the time, it had just blurted out all at once. Now he couldn't believe he had admitted it in front of Rowan. Suddenly all his feelings towards Naruto were becoming clearer. When he left Konoha, he wasn't thinking about anyone or anything but Naruto. The thought of leaving the blonde hurt more than the fact he had become a total disgrace to the image his family had honored so highly. Then, when he was watching Naruto, there was the overwhelming jealousy he felt when Naruto was around Gaara. Finally, Sasuke knew this was probably the reason why he gave his own life for Naruto and couldn't honestly say that he didn't regret it at all. Sasuke wondered if Naruto could possibly have the same feelings. After all, they weren't even that close when Sasuke was in Konoha. If Naruto did feel the same, it would explain the way Naruto dedicated himself to bringing Sasuke home, despite the amount of times the Raven nearly killed Naruto. The way Naruto reacted when he died. The blonde had always been a sensitive person, Sasuke knew that, but he had to wonder if Naruto would react quite so badly to the death of one of his other friends, say, Kiba, Neji or Sakura. Sasuke couldn't help but smile at the fact Naruto had a picture of him under his pillow. That Naruto had secretly taken that photo, a long time ago. That left Sasuke wondering how long Naruto had kept that photo under his pillow. Judging by when it had been taken, it could even have been before he left, before he died, which would surely mean Naruto liked him more than a friend. Sasuke was filled with excitement at the prospect that Naruto could feel the same way. Naruto mumbled something that, much to the Raven's delight, sounded like Sasuke, and rolled over. That seemed to make Sasuke's mind up. Rowan. He couldn't wait any longer, he had to speak with Rowan now. He called for the guardian again, but this time much louder. The slightly flustered guardian appeared by his side. What? He snapped. Sasuke asked what was wrong with Rowan. Well, I do have other charges, you know. What is it this time? He asked quickly. I was thinking about talking to Lord about. Lord Sama. Rowan predictably interjected. Sasuke sighed. That was getting annoying. I was thinking about talking to Lord Sama about Naruto. Rowan groaned. I'm not your babysitter, Uchiha. If you want to see Lord Sama, I'm sure you can go without me holding your hand. It's not that, Sasuke said indignantly. Besides, I've been there alone before. He added. Rowan simply folded his arms across his chest. Then why are you wasting my time? He drawled. I just wanted to know, is there a possibility I could ever come back to life? He asked, glancing at Naruto. Don't even go there. Was Rowan's answer. Sasuke frowned. Rowan didn't seem at all surprised by this, almost like he was expecting it. Yes, Uchiha, I knew you would say something along those lines sooner or later, Rowan said, correctly reading Sasuke's expression. It's because everyone does. Sasuke thought for a moment. I wasn't asking that, I just wanted to know, is there a way? Any way? He asked, getting slightly desperate. Rowan tilted his head slightly, wondering exactly how much he should tell the raven. If you want the truth, then yes. There is a way. Sasuke's expression completely changed, hope filling him. Don't look at me like that, I don't have the power to do that. The only person who would have that power would be. Let me guess, Sasuke grumbled. Lord Sama? Rowan nodded enthusiastically. Of course. He would have knowledge of something as complex as this. Sasuke opened his mouth again, but Rowan quickly cut him off. I myself have asked for this. When Dan was alive, it was all I wanted. Lord Sama refused, of course. I suppose I was rather foolish to expect to be worthy of getting something as. Rowan trailed off, not quite knowing what to say. Well, Lord Sama explained a second chance in life is something that can only be earned by doing something particularly exceptional. It wasn't foolish of you, Sasuke said quietly. Rowan looked up questioningly. Wanting to be with someone you love, I mean. Wanting to go back for that reason. There was an awkward silence between them. Rowan was the first to speak. Well, think about this. Do you truly believe that if I was refused the chance, you will have it handed to you? He said with a smirk, before disappearing. Sasuke glared at the spot Rowan had been standing in seconds ago. He had to admit, Rowan had a point. Rowan was extremely loyal to Lord, and had probably served him well for years. Sasuke sighed sadly. Rowan was right. He hadn't even saved one charge without needing the help of another guardian. There was no way he would even be considered. Another glance at Naruto and what Rowan said seemed insignificant. Now he knew there was a way to get back to Naruto, there was no way he would give up. Any desire Rowan had for becoming a living human again probably died with his lover. Naruto, however, was still alive, and Sasuke was determined that he would get back to his blonde. He needed to let Naruto know how he felt. Rowan. Sasuke waited for about 2 minutes. Another minute later, there was still no sign of the brown-haired guardian. Rowan. He hollered. What is your problem? What could it possibly be now? Rowan shouted angrily. Sasuke rudely pointed at him, filled with enthusiasm. You're a stand-in, right? Rowan simply nodded. Right, there's Naruto. Sasuke pointed to the bed. I'm leaving. He announced. Sasuke spread his wings and was gone before Rowan could even open his mouth. Sasuke hurried down the white corridor. He squinted as he walked to the desk. It could be his imagination, but every time he came here it seemed to be more blinding. Forgetting all respect he should have for the Elder Angel, Sasuke jumped right in and announced his intentions. Rowan informed me there is a way to get back to life. I want to go back to Naruto. Sasuke was met with a silence, which quickly ate away at the large amount of confidence he had charged in with. The raven cleared his throat wondering if, despite the loud voice he had used, he had actually been heard. Didn't you hear me? He mumbled. Lord tore his eyes away from the papers he had been writing on. You're still here? He asked lightly. Sasuke groaned, why did this man have to be so weird? Yes, Lord Sama, I said. Oh, I heard you perfectly well, Sasuke. My hearing is just as good as it used to be. He informed the raven with a smile. I do not know what business Rowan would have informing you of this, as it usually only causes more problems. However, I am sure he did explain that this is a rare privilege. The last time I returned someone to the human world was, he paused. Almost 200 years ago. And that was a very unique situation. I know. Rowan told me you have to do something really special to deserve it, but I just can't keep doing this. In fact, I refuse to do this. Lord seemed mildly interested at this. Oh? Sasuke couldn't believe how calm that man could be while he was so frustrated. I can't keep going on without Naruto. It hurts so much to watch him, every day, knowing I can never be with him. Sasuke took a deep breath and calmed down slightly. Lord Sama, isn't your objective to do what is best for the charges? What is best for Naruto? He asked. The man nodded. Of course. I know Naruto was close to you, despite your absence in his life. Through the betrayal, Naruto forgave you. Through death, he found his life hard to life without you. I am very aware of Naruto Uzumaki's case. Then surely me going back will help him? Lord finished a sentence and placed his expensive-looking pen down. He simply watched as Sasuke was enraged again. Look, I don't care, I need Naruto. Sasuke didn't even bother worrying about how selfish he sounded. I always knew you would be a problem. Very well, you may go back if you wish. Sasuke gaped. What? Just like that? He had expected to take longer in convincing Lord how much he needed, this opportunity. Lord nodded. I believe you should be told. Sasuke stared at him. Told what? He asked quickly. You are quite an interesting case yourself. First in. He pulled out something from his desk. Ah, yes, 400 years. Sasuke was highly curious. Lord placed the paper back. You, Sasuke, were never meant to die. Several emotions flooded the raven at once. But, that doesn't make sense. It never does. Yet here you are. So that's why I can go back when normal guardians, like Rowan, wouldn't be allowed? Lord nodded. Yes. I can revert your destiny to the way it should have gone. Every 100 years or so, something changes and destiny does not quite go as it should. The change does not usually end with death, but in some cases, like yours, it does. I did a lot of research, Sasuke. You were never meant to sacrifice yourself for Naruto Uzumaki. In fact, he was supposed to die. You ended up saving him however, and this is how things turned out. He finished with a small smile. Before I send you back, you need to know, I am correcting destiny, not merely sending you back to the human world. Sasuke frowned, wondering what kind of difference there would be. Correcting? He repeated slowly. Lord nodded. That does mean, however, Naruto Uzumaki will die. What? Despite the feelings you may have for that other boy, you two were never meant to be together in that world. When one lives, the other must die. Your destinies are tied together. Don't kill Naruto. I saved Naruto from Orochimaru for a reason. I value his life far more than mine. If it would kill Naruto, don't send me back. Sasuke thought for a moment. Can't you do it any other way? He asked. Like, simply send me back without letting Naruto die? Even if you earned that chance, there would be unforeseen repercussions in this particular case, Lord said. Would these consequences hurt Naruto? Oh, no physical harm would befall anyone. They would just be unpredicted changes. Anything could happen. That, I am afraid, is truly out of my control. Sasuke nodded. He didn't care what consequence would befall him, as long as Naruto would be safe and he could return and be with the blonde, it didn't matter. Please, send me back. He asked quietly. He was refused immediately. Please. You already said I wasn't supposed to die, so is it really fair to refuse me this? He asked. Lord picked up his pen again. I am not refusing it. You may return. The result would be Naruto Uzumaki's death, the correction of your destiny. I'm sorry Sasuke, that is all I will offer. Sasuke glared at him and shut his mouth with a click, trying to stop himself from saying something he knew he would regret. He gave Lord a final cold look before storming out of the white hallway. He hardly cared how rude he looked. Rowan was furious when Sasuke got back. He completely ignored the angry mood Sasuke was in and started yelling as soon as he saw the raven. How dare you leave me with your charge without any notice whatsoever? He snarled. I have a very important job, Uchiha, and I can't afford to drop everything whenever you decide you want to go off somewhere. Can you imagine what would happen if I decided to leave my Sasuke simply walk straight past Rowan? This made the other guardian even more infuriated than he already was. You don't even care, do you? He hissed. You want to earn the right to go back, yet you just leave your charge whenever you feel like it. Sasuke suddenly felt a little bit better. He remembered Rowan saying he had asked for a chance to go back and it had been refused. Well, for your information, I was allowed the chance to go back, he snapped back. You're lying, Rowan said automatically. No, I'm not, he said. Lord said I wasn't supposed to die, and if I wanted he would correct things so that I could go back, he said. Rowan stared at him skeptically. And you decided not to accept that amazing offer then? You thought it would be nice to stay here with me? He said with a smirk. No, because if I didn't die, then Naruto would, he said. He made it perfectly clear we can't be together, and that he wouldn't make any exceptions at all. He said that he could send me back if he really wanted to, it's just there would be unforeseen consequences. I was ready to accept whatever those consequences were, because Lord said that it wouldn't hurt Naruto, yet he refused me that. Rowan nodded. Sasuke thought, for one wild moment, he was agreeing with him. Of course Lord would deny that. Why should you get that chance when many others wouldn't? I don't care about anyone else, I care about Naruto and what this is doing to him. He snarled. I've already used my chance to help Naruto, yours too for that matter. He's tried to kill himself once, so what's stopping him from trying a second time? You made him promise that he wouldn't. Yes, I did, but that doesn't take away his pain, and it certainly doesn't stop the people in the village attacking him. Those are things that can only be solved by me going back to him, Sasuke said. I just can't fucking believe that man has the power to help, yet he just doesn't think I deserve it enough. He's more annoying than you, and that's saying something. Sasuke added. Thanks. Rowan muttered. Can't you talk to him? Sasuke said suddenly. I mean, you're his favorite, so can't you just talk him round? Sasuke asked. I am not Lord Sama's favorite. He does not favor any guardian over the other. Sasuke snorted. You could have fooled me. The Raven watched as Naruto began searching his drawers for something. Sasuke's gaze went back to Rowan. You make him out to be this fantastic person, but he is stopping me from helping Naruto be happy. Naruto pulled something out that made Sasuke's stomach lurch. Oh no, not again, not this soon. What? Rowan was confused at Sasuke's sudden change of tone. Sasuke pointed to Naruto, who was now pulling a sharpened kunai from a weapon pouch. The blonde stared at the kunai for a moment, before forcing himself to put it back. Sasuke turned to Rowan. How long do you think he's going to manage to put that back? He asked quietly. Rowan didn't answer. Watch him for me, Sasuke said. What? I'm going back to speak to Lord. This time, I'm not taking no for an answer. Even though he had the chance this time, strangely enough, Rowan didn't argue.